For 13 months beginning in October 1875, a Norman castle's occupant recorded nightly disturbances in a diary so methodical and specific that French psychical researchers treated it as primary evidence for decades. The castle stood in Calvados, in the lower half of Normandy, a region that has always kept its secrets close to the stone. The owner, identified in all surviving documents only as Monsieur de X, was not by any measure a hysterical man. His diary reads like an estate ledger. Dates, times, descriptions. The language is spare and administrative, the handwriting consistent. Whatever was happening inside those walls, he recorded it the way a surveyor records elevation, without apparent emotion, with evident care. The household in October 1875 included Monsieur de X, his wife, a Catholic priest by the name of Abbé Doué who resided with the family, and a governess identified only as Mademoiselle Amélie. The staff rounded out the population of the building. This was not a remote hermitage. It was an occupied, functioning home, with regular visitors and the ordinary rhythms of domestic life in provincial France. That matters. What followed was not the product of isolation or suggestion acting on a single fragile mind. Multiple people were present. Multiple people recorded their observations. Multiple people, at different points, left. The disturbances began with knocking, not random, patterned. The diary entries in the early weeks describe sequences of blows against walls and floors, arriving at specific hours of the night, and repeating with what Monsieur de X noted as apparent regularity. Then came footsteps in empty corridors. Then, more disturbing than either, the sound of something heavy being dragged across the floor above rooms where the family slept. Furniture was found displaced in the mornings. Objects moved without explanation between evening and dawn. None of this, in isolation, is remarkable. Buildings settle, timber shifts, but Monsieur de X was not recording one or two incidents across a long winter. He was recording dozens, then scores, across 13 consecutive months. Abbé Doué, the resident priest, was present for a number of the incidents. According to the diary, he attempted to perform religious rites within the castle at some point during the disturbances. The account suggests this had no effect. What is documented with more certainty is that he eventually left the property. A Catholic priest, residing in the home, chose to remove himself from the building rather than remain. The diary does not elaborate on the reasoning he gave. That absence of explanation is itself a kind of statement. The figure of Mademoiselle Amélie is where the case becomes harder to hold at arm's length. Monsieur de X noted, with the same flat precision he applied to everything else, that the intensity of phenomena appeared to increase when the governess was present and to diminish, sometimes markedly, when she was away from the castle. This observation appears multiple times across the diary. He drew no dramatic conclusions from it. He simply logged the correlation, the way one logs temperature or barometric pressure. Whether Mademoiselle Amélie was a cause, a conduit, or a coincidence, the diary does not say. She remained in the household. The disturbances continued. The diary sat in relative obscurity for nearly 2 decades before it reached the Annales des Sciences Psychiques, which published it in 1893. By that point, the Society for Psychical Research had been operating in London for 11 years. Founded in 1882, the Society counted among its members Frederick W. H. Myers, William James, and Arthur Balfour, men who approached anomalous experience not with credulity, but with the methodology of emerging scientific discipline. Myers examined the Calvados material. The Society catalogued the case within its broader census of spontaneous phenomena, placing it alongside hundreds of similar accounts gathered from across Europe. They were not endorsing the supernatural. They were insisting that the data deserved rigorous attention rather than reflexive dismissal. Myers, in particular, noted the diary's unusual quality, the consistency of handwriting, the absence of escalating rhetoric, the presence of multiple independent witnesses. Most fabricated accounts, he observed, tend toward climax. They build, they resolve. The Calvados diary does neither. It simply stops in July 1876 without explanation or conclusion, the way a log is closed at the end of a watch. The phenomena stopped, or the recording stopped. The diary does not distinguish between these possibilities. Monsieur de X never published under his full name. The castle has never been definitively identified. Mademoiselle Amélie left no other trace in any documented record. The annals published the account. Myers read it. James likely read it. Balfour may have done the same. The case entered the literature and remained there, unresolved, filed alongside the other things that careful men could not explain and would not fabricate. What no researcher has ever satisfactorily answered is why the disturbances were so precisely tethered to the governess's presence, and whether she knew.